My mom begged me to come home for the holidays. I'm Claire Miller. I'm 30. And like an idiot, I really believed this Christmas might be different. She called me in London at 3 in the morning, crying on FaceTime, saying we never see you anymore, the whole family needs you here, it won't be the same without you. 10 hours on a cramped overnight flight, 2 layovers, a dead phone battery, and I still showed up at her doorstep in San Diego with a suitcase full of gifts for my brother's kids. I was exhausted, smelled like airplane coffee, and my back was screaming. I rang the bell with my heart thumping, stupidly hoping she'd hug me the way she used to when I was a kid. The door flew open. No hello. No how was your flight. No hug. Just my mom staring at my suitcase and saying, like it was the most normal thing in the world, you'll babysit your brother's kids. We're going on a family trip. My brother stepped into the doorway with sunglasses on, a duffel bag over his shoulder, the kids hanging off his arms. He smirked and said, "Hey guys, don't wipe your snot on Aunt Claire. She's jet-lagged." They all laughed like I was the punchline. My parents, my brother, the kids, everyone cracking up while I stood there with airplane hair and a credit card bill full of tickets I'd paid for. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just felt something inside me click off, like a switch. I smiled, set my suitcase down in the entryway, looked my mom straight in the eye, and said one sentence. That was the moment everything flipped. The laughter stopped. The color drained from their faces. My mom kept whispering, "No, no, no way." By the time I finished, their dream vacation wasn't happening. Their house was suddenly at risk, and I was finally done being their free babysitter and personal bank. Stay with me till the end, and I'll tell you exactly how one ungrateful daughter ruined her family's perfect holiday and took her life back in the process. The funny thing is, the moment I said that one sentence, the entire room froze. But to really understand why, you need to know what the people standing in that doorway had been doing to me for years. My mom didn't just miss me when she called me in London. 2 weeks before that 3 a.m. FaceTime, she'd already sent me screenshots of insanely expensive holiday prices, hinting how she and my dad could never afford a trip like that unless I helped a little, just this once. Just this once was how every favor always started. When my dad needed knee surgery, I wired money. When my brother Jason maxed out his credit cards on his big e-commerce idea, I helped him consolidate the debt. When the water heater broke and the mortgage was overdue, I sent money, and a week later my mom posted photos from a new brunch place downtown. I live in a tiny flat in London. I cook most of my meals at home. I walk to work in the rain. And somehow, I was still paying for Uber Eats and streaming services in a house I didn't live in, on a continent I didn't even live on anymore. This time though, before I booked my ticket home, I paid attention. I saved every Zelle transfer, every PayPal receipt, every "thank you honey, we'll pay you back when things calm down." I noticed something else too. An email from the bank with my name on a mortgage I didn't remember signing. Years earlier, they'd listed me as a co-borrower to get a better rate, and I'd been covering the shortfalls ever since. So while my mom cried on FaceTime about how the kids miss you so much, how Mia keeps asking when Aunt Claire is coming, I was sitting on my bed in London, staring at my banking app, realizing the only time my family treated me like part of the group was when a bill was due. I almost said no. I almost told her to figure it out herself. But then another thought hit me. If they were willing to drag me halfway across the world to use me as a free babysitter and a walking credit card, I was finally willing to show them what it looked like when I stopped playing along. I booked my flight, but I also booked a call with a financial advisor, downloaded 3 years of statements, and had a simple document drawn up using a legal template site. So standing there in that San Diego doorway, while Jason laughed and my mom announced my babysitting schedule like it was already decided, I wasn't just the tired, jet-lagged daughter they were used to. I rolled my suitcase inside, let the kids bounce around my legs, and followed them into the kitchen where their printed itinerary was spread across the counter like a glossy promise. Resort photos, flight times, family package stamped in bold letters. My mom tapped the brochure and said, "See, this is why we needed you here, honey. The kids will stay with you. We'll finally have a real vacation. You always tell me we should take care of ourselves." I looked at the resort name, recognized the card number on the confirmation email open on her phone, and felt that same switch flip in my chest again. They really thought I'd flown 10 hours just to be their built-in nanny and personal bank. But the truth was, I'd come home to finally do something I should have done years ago. So I smiled, asked my mom to get everyone into the dining room so we could go over a few things before they left, opened my laptop on the table, and pulled up the stack of digital receipts that was about to turn their family trip into the last time any of them ever saw me as a free resource. My dad sat at the head of the table, like it was some official family meeting. My mom hovered by the counter clutching that printed itinerary. Jason scrolled on his phone, barely listening. Mia and Logan spun in circles on the tile. I slid my laptop closer, turned the screen toward them, and said as calmly as I could, "Before you go anywhere, we need to talk about money." Jason groaned and said, "Claire, seriously right now?" My dad muttered something about bad timing. My mom gave me that wounded look and said, "Honey, we've been under so much stress. Can we please not start a fight before we even leave?" I didn't raise my voice. I just clicked into the first folder labeled Miller Household and opened a spreadsheet. Every line was dated, color-coded, and painfully clear. "Last March," I began, "you called me because the mortgage was 2 months behind. I wired $1,200. In June, Jason's business expenses maxed out his card. I sent $2,500. When the water heater broke, $900. When Dad's truck needed new tires, $600. When the electric bill was past due, $300 here, $400 there. Every month for 3 years, there's something." I scrolled slowly so they could watch the numbers stack up, highlighting entries as I spoke. This doesn't even include Disney Plus, Hulu, Netflix, Spotify Family Plan, Walmart Plus, the cell phone plan, or the random emergency Venmo requests that somehow always lined up with Black Friday or Labor Day sales. Jason straightened in his chair, the color draining from his face as he saw his own "I swear I'll pay you back next month" messages sitting in the notes column. My mom's hand flew to her mouth when she saw screenshots of her texts asking for gas money to visit Grandma, followed by photos of her at a new nail salon. My dad's jaw tightened when he saw the PayPal transfer labeled knee surgery copay, and then the receipt for a brand new flat screen bought that same week. "This isn't fair," my mom whispered. "You're making us look like bad people." I shook my head. "I'm not making you look like anything. I'm just showing you what actually happened." Then I scrolled to the bottom, to the row in bold. The total sat there, big and impossible to ignore. "In the last 36 months, I said quietly, "I've sent this house just over $60,000. The room went completely silent. Jason blinked hard. My dad stared at the wall. My mom kept whispering, "No, that can't be right. That can't be right," like saying it enough times would change the math. I reached into my bag, pulled out a thin stack of printed pages, and slid them onto the table beside the glossy itinerary for their dream resort. "This," I said, "is a simple agreement. It's not a lawsuit. It's not me taking you to court. It's just a record that all of you acknowledge you owe me this money, and we'll start paying it back, even if it's slowly, $50 a month, $100, whatever you can manage." I had it drafted using a legal template, and my advisor looked it over. "All it says is that this amount," I tapped the $60,000 on the screen, "was not a gift." My dad finally snapped out of his shock. "We are family," he barked. "You don't put family in debt like that. What, are you going to sue your own parents?" I met his eyes. Family doesn't hide a mortgage in their daughter's name, and only call her when the payment's late. Family doesn't spend her money on vacations and brunch, and then tell everyone she abandoned them. My mom flinched like I'd slapped her. Jason grabbed the papers, skimmed the first paragraph, and his voice cracked. "This is insane. I can't pay this back. None of us can." I leaned back in my chair. "I know. And I'm not expecting you to, not all at once. But I am done living in a world where you pretend you're the victims, and I'm some selfish career girl overseas. If you ever tell a neighbor, a cousin, or Facebook that I left you with nothing, I'll show them these numbers. Every transfer. Every bill I covered. Every time you chose Starbucks over the electricity bill, because you knew I'd bail you out." My mom shook her head over and over, whispering, "No, no, no way. You wouldn't do that, Claire. You wouldn't humiliate your own family." I shrugged. "I'm not planning to, as long as you stop lying." Then I clicked to another tab, the one with their resort reservation confirmation. The familiar logo filled the screen, along with their names, dates, and a small note at the bottom showing the last 4 digits of the card on file. My card. And about that family trip you're so excited about, I added, still calm, you might want to sit down for this part. My dad frowned. What are you talking about? I pointed to the status line under the reservation number. Cancelled. 3 days ago, I called the resort and the airline, I said. Since the bookings were made with my card and my account, I had every right. The package has been refunded. The flight credits have been moved. So when I told you at the door that I wasn't babysitting while you went on vacation, I closed the laptop halfway, just enough to see all their faces at once. What I meant was there is no vacation anymore. Not without me. Not without my money. Not ever again on my dime. My dad lurched out of his chair when he saw the word cancelled, like he could bully the screen into changing. You had no right, he snapped. Those are our tickets. I didn't flinch. They were bought with my card, from my account, with my money. The right was all mine. He opened his mouth to argue, but I was already clicking to the next window. And that brings me to the house we're sitting in right now. An email from the bank filled the screen, both our names at the top. Gary Miller and Claire Miller, co-borrowers. My dad stared at it as the color drained from his face. My mom whispered, Claire, please not this. We told you it was just paperwork. I swallowed the familiar ache in my throat. You told me it was a formality, I said. You told me it wouldn't affect me, but I've been covering short payments on this mortgage for years. Every time you missed a bill, it hit my credit too. I clicked a button and a small video window popped up in the corner of the screen. My financial advisor appeared, framed by her home office in London. We'd spoken before I ever got on the plane. Hi Claire, she said. Is now still a good time? I turned the laptop slightly so my parents could see. Perfect, I said. You remember my family situation? My dad hissed, who is this? I answered without looking at him. This is the person who helped me understand exactly what being a co-borrower on your mortgage really means, and what my options are now that I'm done bailing you out. The advisor introduced herself politely, and then got straight to the point. In calm, measured language, she explained that as a co-borrower my credit was tied to this house, that missed payments and constant shortfalls were hurting me, and that I had the right to go to the bank and formally request to be removed from the loan. In practice, she continued, that meant the lender would require the remaining borrower or borrowers to qualify on their own. They might have to refinance, or in some cases, if they couldn't meet the requirements, the property could need to be sold to satisfy the debt. My mom shook her head, her voice trembling. You can't do that. We can't afford to move. We can't afford higher payments. The advisor stayed gentle. That's between you and the lender, ma'am. What I can say is that Claire is not obligated to keep her name on a loan she isn't truly benefiting from, especially when she's the one covering the shortfall. I thanked her and ended the call, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my teeth. The room felt smaller, like the walls were closing in. My dad turned on me. You're really going to make your own parents homeless over some numbers on a screen? I looked him straight in the eye. No. I'm going to stop letting you gamble with my future, while acting like I owe you my entire life. If you can afford resorts and plane tickets when you think I'll be here to babysit, you can afford to sit down with a bank and figure out how to pay for your own house. I reached into my bag again and pulled out a folded letter. This is my formal notice that I'm stopping all automatic payments related to this property. The bank will contact you directly from now on. I'm also closing the joint checking account Mom convinced me to open just in case there's an emergency. I couldn't help air quoting the words. My mom made a choked sound. But that's where the grocery money comes from. That's how we pay utilities. How are we supposed to manage? I took a slow, steady breath. The same way every other adult in this country does. With your own income, your own budgeting, and your own consequences when you overspend. I opened another tab showing the monthly auto drafts I'd set up over the years. Mortgage supplement, power, internet, streaming bundles, grocery deliveries, car payment top-ups. All of them had my name next to the word payer. As of today, I said, my cursor hovering over the cancel button for each one, these stop. You'll get your own bills in your own names. If they're late, that's between you and the companies, not me and my credit score. Jason finally spoke, panic creeping into his voice. Claire, you can't just pull everything at once. At least give us time. I'll pick up more hours. I'll sign up for more delivery shifts. I swear. Just don't screw us like this. I turned to him. You're 34 years old. You have 2 kids. You should have been doing this years ago, without me hanging around as your safety net. He stared at the table, jaw tight. For a moment, I almost softened, almost slid back into the role they'd written for me. The fixer. The quiet helper. The girl who cried in the shower, and then opened her banking app to make everything disappear. But then I remembered how they laughed at the door. How my mom said, "You'll babysit," like it was just another item on her list. And that softer part of me shut down again. I clicked cancel on the autopays one by one. Confirmation emails pinged my phone. My mom's breathing sped up. My dad sank back into his chair, staring at nothing. "This is cruel," he muttered. "You're punishing us." I shook my head. "No. I'm stepping out of a role you all assigned me without asking. And I'm giving you the chance to be honest about what you can actually afford without hiding behind my bank account." I closed the laptop and stood up, my legs shaking but steady enough. "After this," I said, "if you tell anyone that I abandoned you, remember I have every receipt, every bill, every transfer. I'm done being the villain in the story you tell other people to make yourselves feel better." I picked up my suitcase and added quietly, "You wanted a real vacation. Maybe this is it. A vacation from pretending I'm your built-in solution to every bad decision. Let's see how you handle life without that." My dad finally snapped when he saw me rolling my suitcase toward the hallway. He jumped up so fast his chair scraped the tile. "If you walk out after this little show, don't bother coming back. You're not welcome in this house if you're going to hold money over our heads." My mom reached for my arm. "Gary, stop. She just needs to calm down. We can talk about this." But she didn't step between us. Jason stared at the floor in silence. I paused in the doorway, my hand on the handle, every muscle in my body shaking. Part of me wanted to drop everything, apologize, promise I'd figure something out like I always did. Instead, I straightened and said, "You're the ones who decided my value here was measured by what I pay for. If I'm not welcome without my credit card, then I was never really welcome at all." My dad pointed at the door. "Get out," he said. "And don't come crying to us when London chews you up and spits you out." I almost laughed. London wasn't what had been eating me alive. This kitchen was. I stepped outside into the California sun and closed the door behind me. No one followed. No one called my name. The only sound was Mia and Logan arguing about a cartoon, completely unaware their vacation had just disappeared. I ordered an Uber and dragged my suitcase to the curb, feeling more homeless than I actually was. The driver loaded my bag and asked where to. I gave him the address I'd never shared with my parents, a high-rise downtown, 15 minutes from their quiet street, but a completely different world. 6 months earlier, after one too many midnight transfers and guilt trips, I'd used my savings and my steady UX salary to put a down payment on a tiny one-bedroom condo. I told my family I was just thinking about moving back to the States someday, but the papers were already signed. I planned to ease into it quietly, once I figured out how to untangle myself from their finances without blowing everything up. Tonight proved there was no gentle way. When the Uber stopped in front of the glass building, it felt unreal. I swiped my key fob, rolled my suitcase through a lobby I'd only seen twice, and rode the elevator to the 8th floor. The condo smelled like fresh paint and new carpet. No cooking sales, no estresse, no desperation. Just empty. Mine. I dropped my suitcase in the middle of the living room and stood at the window, looking out at the city lights. For the first time in years, my phone wasn't buzzing with "Can you send something" until Friday or the card declined again. "Can you fix it?" I opened my banking app and canceled the last few things still tied to my name. Disney plus cancelled. Hulu canceled. Spotify family plan, shared cloud storage, random Apple charges for games the kids downloaded. Canceled, canceled, canceled. Each confirmation felt like cutting another string wrapped around my ribs for a decade. I made myself a cup of cheap grocery store coffee in my barely stocked kitchen and sat on the floor, because I didn't even have a couch yet. In the quiet, the doubts rushed in. What if I'd gone too far? What if they really couldn't keep the lights on without me? What if I had become the selfish, ungrateful daughter my dad always warned me about? Then I remembered my mom opening the door like I was hired help. Jason joking about the kids wiping their snot on me while everyone laughed, already counting on me to make their plans work. Beneath the fear and guilt, something else settled in my chest for the first time in years. A thin, quiet peace. They would feel my absence. The bills would come. Late fees would pile up. The life built on my invisible paycheck would start to wobble. But tonight in this small, echoing condo, there was no one left to save but me. I took a sip of coffee, opened my laptop, and watched new emails roll in from banks, utilities, and streaming services, all confirming what I already knew. For the first time, my family was on their own. The first sign that it was really hitting them didn't come through a call or a text. It came from Facebook. About a week later, my friend Emma sent me a screenshot with a simple message. Have you seen this? It was my dad's profile. His name right there above a long, dramatic post about how some kids forget who raised them the second they get a fancy job overseas. About how he and my mom were left with nothing right before Christmas. He never used my name, but he didn't have to. Our daughter flew in from London and decided money mattered more than blood, he wrote. Pray for us. Underneath were comments from people who'd known me since I wore braces. So sorry, Gary, that's awful. Kids these days don't understand family. You gave her everything and this is how she repays you. One woman even added, if she won't help, maybe set up a GoFundMe, we'll share it. My stomach twisted like I'd swallowed ice. He was doing exactly what I warned him not to do, turning himself into the helpless victim and me into the cold, heartless villain, rewriting the entire story for an audience that had no idea how many times I'd quietly paid their bills. For a minute, I paced my tiny living room with my phone in my hand, finger hovering over the call button. I almost drove back to that house. Almost begged him to take it down. Almost offered to turn one of the payments back on just to make the humiliation stop. The old version of me, the fixer, the one trained to smooth everything over, was clawing at my chest. Then I pictured the spreadsheet on my laptop, the email tying my name to their mortgage, the stacks of transfers. The way my mom had looked past my face and straight at my suitcase when she opened the door, like I was a delivery driver dropping off a package. That image snapped me back. Instead of calling my dad, I opened my email and pulled up the thread with my financial advisor. I told her about the post, about how my family had used my money for years while claiming they were barely surviving, and I asked one simple question. Was there anything else I needed to do to protect myself now that I'd cut them off? Her reply was calm and detailed. She told me to document everything, save copies of every transfer and bill, and make sure the bank and any relevant agencies had the full picture of who had actually been paying what. She mentioned that in situations like mine, where one person unofficially props up a household that's also claiming hardship or receiving certain benefits, it can be appropriate to ask for things to be reviewed, just to be sure everything is above board. I didn't need a step-by-step guide. I just needed to know I wasn't crazy for feeling like something had been wrong. Over the next few weeks, while my dad kept posting vague complaints about ungrateful kids and this generation, envelopes started arriving at the house on their quiet cul-de-sac. I didn't see them myself, but my mom's frantic texts told me enough. Did you talk to the bank? She wrote one morning. We got a letter about reassessing the loan. They want updated information. Another day, early on a Monday, my phone blew up. There's something from the IRS. I'm freaking out. I thought you said everything was fine. Why are they asking questions? I had never said everything was fine. I'd said I was done fixing things in the dark. The bank wanted updated mortgage documents. The utility companies wanted full payments instead of the partial ones I'd been sliding in at the last second. Like some invisible janitor cleaning up a mess no one else wanted to acknowledge. The comfortable fog they'd been living in was thinning, and there was nothing left to hide behind except what they could actually afford. Jason eventually texted asking to meet at a coffee shop near my building. When he walked in, he looked smaller without the sarcasm to prop him up. Dark circles under his eyes, unshaven stubble, a delivery bag slung over his shoulder. He dropped into the chair across from me and went straight to it. Dad needs to shut up online, he said, rubbing his face. Those posts are making everything worse. He's embarrassing himself and Mom, and honestly me too. And I know you're mad, but the letters, the calls, you did something, right? I took a slow sip of coffee and let him sit in the discomfort before answering. What I did was stop pretending we were all being honest. I talked to professionals. I made sure my name wouldn't go down with a ship I wasn't steering. If that means some systems are finally noticing where the money has really been coming from, that's not my fault. He stared at the table, then admitted he'd signed up for more shifts, sold old tech gear, moved his kids into a smaller room so he could take on a roommate and cut rent. It sucks, he said quietly. But for the first time, I'm actually seeing what things cost. Groceries, gas, daycare. I didn't get it before. I just knew if it got bad enough, someone would text you. Meanwhile, my mom started selling the designer bags and home decor she'd shown off online, listing them as barely used, even though I knew exactly how often she'd carried them to brunch. The new TV my dad bought after his surgery, the one he'd called Recovery Entertainment, disappeared from the living room in my cousin's holiday photos, replaced by an old boxy set from the garage. Their truck was finally repossessed one gray morning after too many missed payments, the kind of scene they used to shake their heads at when it happened to a neighbor. Now it was their driveway, their sidewalk, their humiliation as the tow truck pulled away, a symbol of a lifestyle they could no longer fake. Through all of it, my dad kept my number unblocked, but he never once called to apologize or tell the truth. He just kept tossing little grenades online, vague posts about betrayal and ingratitude, hoping someone would carry them back to me so I'd feel guilty enough to crawl home. He told anyone who would listen that his daughter abandoned him for money and status, carefully leaving out that most of the money had been flowing in the opposite direction for years. I didn't respond publicly. I didn't jump into the comments or post my own dramatic screenshots, even though a petty part of me wanted to. I didn't need to. I had my receipts. I had my advisor. My credit was finally starting to untangle from theirs. And more than anything, I had distance. Every time I heard he was telling the story of the cold daughter in London, all I could think was that if they saw even one page of that spreadsheet, they wouldn't ask why I walked away. They'd ask how I stayed as long as I did. By the time Christmas came around again, the Miller house was a different universe, and so was mine. I learned it in small, strange ways. A tagged photo of my mom at a discount store instead of her usual boutique. A grainy picture of Jason's kids in a cramped apartment instead of my parents' backyard. Comments from friends asking if everything was okay. I didn't reach out. I focused on my job in San Diego, on building my portfolio, on furnishing my condo one paycheck at a time. I bought a second-hand couch, a fake tree for the corner, and cheap fairy lights that somehow made the place feel warmer. Then one rainy Tuesday in December, someone knocked on my door. When I checked the peephole, my stomach dropped. It was my mom. She looked smaller somehow. No full makeup, no carefully styled hair, just a tired woman clutching a reusable grocery bag to her chest like a shield. I let her in, my heart racing. She stood in the middle of my living room and slowly turned, taking in the couch, the view, the tiny Christmas tree with 3 mismatched ornaments. I didn't know it looked like this, she said softly. I always imagined you somewhere bigger, fancier. I shrugged. This is what I can afford without paying for 2 households. She winced like the words physically hurt, then opened the bag and pulled out an envelope. Inside was a check. Not for $60,000, not even close, but it was something. It's from selling things, she said quickly, her eyes shining. Bags, some jewelry, that coffee table you hated. And I've been picking up extra shifts at the office. It's not much, but it's a start. I told Jason we can't pretend this was all a misunderstanding anymore. For a moment, I just stared at the check. It wasn't about the amount. It was about my mother, who had spent years acting like my money was endless, standing in my small, very human-sized living room, and finally admitting out loud that she had treated me like an ATM. She sat on the edge of the couch and started crying, not the loud, dramatic sobbing from that 3 a.m. FaceTime call, but quiet, broken little sounds. Your father still says you betrayed us, she said. He tells everyone you turned on your family because you think you're better than us, but I can't keep saying it. Not after seeing those papers. Not after the bank letters. We did use you. I did. I sat beside her, leaving space between us. I'm not asking you to hate him, I said. I'm asking you to stop letting him rewrite what happened just so he doesn't have to feel guilty. She nodded, wiping her face. Jason's working, she added. Like really working. Late nights, warehouse shifts, delivery runs. He moved into a smaller place. The kids share a room now, but at least it's a place he pays for himself. He wanted me to tell you thank you for the spreadsheet. I actually laughed, a short surprised sound. I didn't make that for him, I said. I made it for me. She looked at me carefully. Do you think someday we could have a Christmas where you come over, and it's just dinner? No money talk, no hidden bills, just us. My throat tightened. Maybe, I said. But only if everyone in that house understands I am not their safety net anymore. If I come, it's because I want to, not because there's a payment due. She nodded again, stood up, and hugged me. A real hug this time, the kind I'd been waiting for my whole life. When she left, I slipped the check into a drawer. I didn't cash it right away. I just needed to know that for once, the flow of money was pointed in the other direction. As for my dad, the last thing I saw from him was another vague post about family turning their backs. I muted him, then finally blocked his profile and his number. It felt less like slamming a door, and more like closing a wound that refused to heal. That Christmas Eve, I sat alone on my couch, tree lights blinking, a cheap mug of hot chocolate warming my hands, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel obligated to be anywhere else. No flights, no babysitting schedules, no emergency transfers, just quiet, just mine. Here's what I learned. Family doesn't stop being family just because you say no. The people who truly love you will eventually adjust to your boundaries. The ones who were only there for what you could provide will call you selfish the moment you stop bleeding for them. It hurts. It's lonely. But sometimes distance is the only way to stop drowning in someone else's bad decisions. So let me ask you this. If the people draining your bank account and your sanity share your last name, would you keep paying the price just to be called loyal? Or would you walk away like I did and finally give yourself permission to be your own family first? If this story touched you, like the video, subscribe for more real stories, and comment which city you're watching from.